Next, Your Excellencies, we want to take a good message from our special guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, ably represented by the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Mallam Lanre, Issa-Onilu. Please can we give him a round of applause as he comes to give his good message on this lovely occasion.
Good morning, everyone. Let me start by saying we are in the process of ensuring we cut down on protocol. So if you don't see me recognizing too many people, it's because of part of the effort we are making to make Nigeria to be business conscious. Notwithstanding, I have the pleasure of acknowledging everyone here, and I listened carefully, and I'm happy I met Professor Ataru Jega's presentation, and I can tell you all we need to know was contained in that beautiful presentation. Thank you, Prof. Let me start by also saying I'm here wearing two caps. First, I got a call this morning, just barely 1.5 hours ago, that the minister asked me to stand in for him here. I'm aware of this program. We have made arrangements as an agency before, but I also had that instruction to stand in for the minister. But the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, is the overall, or let me say overseer, of the issue of national orientation that I am privileged to pilot. So with that, in his voice, with his tongue, or rather my tongue, and in his message, is to commend the people who have got themselves involved in this. This is what we all need to do in this country. This is a great and marvelous initiative. So, National Orientation Agency would work shoulder to shoulder, toe to toe with this important group to ensure that we achieve this objective. But if I don't know how much time I have, if you permit me, I would like to say, a few things. Patriotism, as Professor Jega, correctly noted, is often, represented in different forms. And actually, it is contextual. Patriotism in Nigeria is not patriotism in Russia. It is not in Saudi Arabia. It is not in America. It is contextual to the environment. If you're not Korean, your patriotism is differently defined. So there's that uniqueness in the definition of patriotism. So we must also understand what patriotism means in Nigeria. So, but beyond that, what has the government been doing on this? As I was coming in, I had an encounter, being interviewed outside, and I was asked, what do we need to do as a country to ensure there's patriotism, which is not existing because of economic situation? And I said, no, it is not economy. It has nothing, let me say not that it has nothing, but it is not the reason why we are not patriotic. There are people who are very comfortable in this country, and this country has done a lot for, and yet they are not patriotic. And there are people who are struggling every day to even get something to eat, and yet they are demonstrating love for the country in spite of that. I think Prof also noted that in his presentation. Patriotism is an emotional issue, and you cannot legislate patriotism, neither can you enforce it. You must motivate it. So what we have not done in this country is to motivate patriotism. Because it's an emotional issue, It's like love. There must be an attraction. Nigeria has not put attraction in place to motivate Nigerians to be patriotic. When we came in about a year ago, we acknowledged all the past efforts. And I'm happy again that Prof, illustrated by what happened in the mid-80s. When this issue of JACPA, the JACPA of mid-80s is by far greater and bigger than whatever is happening now. And the mantra of Andrew, please don't check out, was very prominent then. Asking Nigerians to stay around so that we can salvage this country together. So there have been a lot of efforts to galvanize Nigerians to be patriotic and have love for the country. We had Nigeria, good people, good nation. The last one, we have change begins with me. And we have observed that we are still where we are. In fact, it is getting worse. It is easy to hold the citizens responsible. But what we have discovered is that, two things have always been missing. And perhaps those are the reasons why we have not made significant progress in getting Nigerians to be Nigerians. One is the fact that all past efforts had focused on the citizens alone, asking the citizens to be patriotic, to make sacrifices, to love their country, without a corresponding commitment from the leadership. So there can be motivation because it's like in a typical home, you have the father and the mother constantly telling the children how to be good citizens or good children. But everything the two of them do is contrary to what they are telling the children. So there's no way those children can be motivated. You may beat them, you may do anything you want to do. And that's why I say you cannot enforce it. You cannot legislate it. Because it's an emotional issue. So now, we observe that if we are going to call for patriotism, we must ensure that the two sides to this issue come to the table. And that's the leadership and the citizens. And each side understand exactly what its own commitment is. And so that's why we came up with, we had a different group, different segment of Nigerians put together to brainstorm, before we came up with the blueprint of what we call the National Identity Project. Because we understand first and foremost that we do not even have a shared identity as a people. As citizens of Nigeria, if Professor Jega sees me now and says, you are not a good Nigerian, and I ask him why, he's going to give his opinion. Because there's no definition of who a Nigerian is. It's not been defined. And that has to do because citizens of every country are unique. They have their attributes that make them to be different from citizens of other countries. If you go to France, the French pride themselves in family orientation. And it's not by accident they say, see Paris and die. They want to be the most fashionable, country in the world. And they do everything to ensure that reflects. If you go to Japan, they have their values clearly stated. So if you see their children behaving, they're having some kind of shared mannerisms, it's because there is clearly defined identity for the citizens. If you go to America and you have what we call the American dream, and you see all the things that constitute the American dream, exceptionalism, pursuit of happiness, liberty, and the rest. It's clearly stated, even as a foreign student in America, you will learn Americanness. It is there, already embedded in their system. So they nurture their citizens based on the values that are clearly defined. And that's why it is difficult for you to be an American. You grow up there, and you are into movie production, and you write your script, and then America now is defeated in that movie. Have you ever watched any movie where produced by America and the American lost in that movie? Whether they are fighting Russia or Arabs or people from the space. They can't, because the orientation is we are exceptional. And if you're exceptional and you have that consciousness, there's no way you would not see yourself as the best. And that would drive whatever you do. So country to country, the Red Book of China is there that clearly defines who they are. Now, so we have not defined who we are. And so what we are trying to do with the National Identity Project is to define who is a Nigerian. So you first and foremost need to know who you are before you can now know what are expected of you, and then you now live up to those. So now, under this National Identity Project, we have what we call the National Values Charter. Charter means agreement. Agreement between the country and the citizens. Remember, I said one of the two things that were missing in the past effort had, one, the effort had always been targeted at the citizens alone. So this time we are bringing the two parties to the table. So that's why we have a charter. And I want to also acknowledge Prof for saying, when we say patriotism, we are not saying patriotism to a political party or a leader, but to the country. Completely distinct entities. So that's why we are saying the country, and the citizens will have to sit down and have a charter, a value charter. So this value charter has components. The first component is what we call the Nigerian promise. The Nigerian promise has 7 pillars. That if you find yourself as Director General of National Orientation Agency, you are to, on behalf of the country that has signed a charter with the citizens, to keep 7 pillars of promise, to ensure you implement, you reflect those promises in everything you do. Once you are able to do that, the issue of leadership is solved. The challenge of leadership is taken care of. So these pillars constitute the Nigerian promise. This is what the country has promised every citizen. In exchange for that, we have what we call the citizen codes. That is codes of conduct. That is the reciprocal commitment of the citizens in exchange for the promise. And so we have 7 pillars of the of the citizen codes as well. That's why we call it 7 for 7. So the country is giving us 7, and the citizens are returning 7. All of these are nothing new. If you go to the chapter 2 of our constitution, it's already spelled out there. But we have several documents in our shelf in this country that has all the solutions to our problems, but we never implement them. Just the same way we have it in the constitution. There are no institutions that have been created to implement these things. And that takes me to the second thing that we realize has been missing in past efforts. There are no institutions created to nurture us on values. So if there are no institutions, you can have the best blueprint on value system. We are going nowhere. So we need to identify what institutions do we need to create, so that no matter what route you take growing up, you're going to encounter these institutions that will give you this education on who a Nigerian is, so that you, at the end, on every day, on daily basis, you are able to self-assess to see whether you are truly a Nigerian. I don't know, I'm spending a lot of time already. I would just cut it short. The bottom line is the just penultimate Federal Executive Council, because this cannot be implemented without the buy-in of the federal government. Penultimate Federal Executive Council, the 7 for 7 was approved, and the 7 institutionalization processes were also approved. So we are going back now for the National Value Charter itself, returning it to FEC for final approval for implementation. And if you permit me, let me just mention 3 of the 7 institutionalization processes. 1, those days, those who are old enough to know that you cannot pass through primary school without learning civic education. And it used to be compulsory in this country. But now that is not taken serious anymore. In the last 3 decades, we have left our children, both parents and government, unprotected. They have been exposed to all sorts of influences, mainly from other countries. From age 1, they are exposed. So when they get to school, they do not have the opportunity of even learning Nigeria. So now, federal government has approved, Federal Executive Council has approved what we call Citizenship Study. And what that means is it is going to be a compulsory subject from primary school through secondary school, and when you're doing your JNS in the university, there, to let you know who a Nigerian is and what are the values they must find in you. So when you leave the university and Prof and his colleagues are signing on your certificate to say you have been found worthy in learning and character. That is the character aspect of that. So that is an institution to nurture Nigerians. I'll mention two more quickly. Secondly, I'm focusing on the youth because we're in a country where 35 years and below constitutes 76% of our population. So any policy that is not youth-centric is a waste of time. So, secondly, age 1 to 16, they spend average of 6 to 7 hours daily watching cartoons, both at home and in nursery school, also in school. And the cartoons are 99.9% foreign. Spending time to consume values that are alien to our culture. And so they grow up, we have been raising foreigners in the last 3 decades. And when you go to the social media, you can see it clearly. So now, we also call for nationalization of cartoon content. So what that means is, and it has been approved by FEC, what that means is, henceforth, for the next 3 years, we want to raise the content produced here in cartoons about us, about our values, about our tradition and culture, to at least 70% of the content our children are consuming. So that means there will be a lot of investment into animation. So on the 30th, 31st of October and 1st of November in Lagos, there is a festival of animation, creators. 26 countries are participating. So we will be there and see how to support them. There have been a lot of Nigerians who already have acquired expertise in this. And we are putting our own little resources to ensure we promote it. And very soon, you will be seeing that most of our content are going to be about us. The 10-year-old boy in Ibadan knows New York through Spider-Man. And he has never left Ibadan. But he doesn't know anything about the people of Enugu. He has never met them, except the prejudice that he's growing up with, that we all shared in all our tribes about the other tribe. So, and they meet people, they have their heroes. We have never provided them models. We didn't give them heroes. So they acquired their own heroes. Of course, most heroes they have acquired are negative heroes. And that's why we have what we have today. So they are victims. So there cannot be blame on them. So, but it's never too late for us to redress this issue. So we are also introducing this cartoon, which is also approved. The third one and the last one, I apologize for taking too much time. The third one is on the issue of voluntary group of nurturing. We know that we used to have Boy Scouts, Girls Guides, Girls Brigades those days. These were voluntary institutions of nurturing where they raised leadership, model citizens. But somehow we don't take all of this serious. So we have applied and got approval to establish what we call Citizen Brigades in primary school and secondary schools. And we are starting with 37,000 this year, 1,000 per state. And these people are going to be nurtured on the Nigerian Values Charter. So they're going to be the ambassadors of the Nigerian identity. And so that their peers can begin to see who a Nigerian is through them. So we can, over the next 3 years, have millions of our children, Nigerians we are creating. 7 of them, but I've mentioned 3. Thank you for tolerating me. Lastly, let me just round off by saying that the copies of national identity, a summary of the national identity project is here, and I'm sure that there's enough to go around. And I also need to note, and it is pardonable, the national anthem, the old but now new national anthem. A lot of mistakes, occur because people are still getting familiar with it. As we speak, we are distributing 2 million copies of this across the country. We will do more. And here, there's enough also for all of us to have. From what I see in the program, I noticed 2 errors, which you permit me to quickly correct. The first stanza, where we have Nigerians all. Please, if you check your program, Nigerians all. In the program, you have hand, proud to serve. It is ha, A-R-E, proud to serve. Please, let's correct that. And again, stanza 3, the last line. You have Nigeria shall be blessed in the program. It is Nigeria may be blessed. Now, when we play, we say, may God bless us. So those are the 2 things I noticed. But you have this that are enough to give every body. Thank you very much.